Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Cara Knott and Craig Peyer? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Cara Evelyn Knott was born on February 11, 1966, and was raised in El Cajon, California. In 1986, 20-year-old Cara lived with her parents. She was a junior at San Diego State University, studying to be a teacher. Craig Peyer was born on March 16, 1950. He became a California Highway Patrol officer sometime around 1973. He had been assigned to patrol Interstate 15 from Escondido to San Diego. He was described as a very aggressive police officer by his colleagues. They intended this as a compliment. He was incorrectly considered to be an excellent officer. Craig had been married and divorced twice. In 1985, he married for a third time. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On December 27, 1986, Cara Knott was visiting her boyfriend Wayne in Escondido, California, because he had the flu. She left Wayne's residence in her 1968 Volkswagen Beetle at about 8:30 p.m. with the intent of driving to her parents' home in El Cajon. Cara stopped at a Chevron gas station and fueled before taking Interstate 15 south. This trip was about 35 miles and should have only taken Cara about 45 minutes. At around 10 p.m., Cara had still not arrived home, and her parents grew concerned. Her family members looked for her on the roads around Escondido. They checked with hospitals. There was no sign of Cara. The next day, Cara's brother-in-law spotted her Volkswagen on the unfinished off-ramp for Mercy Road, off of Interstate 15. This was just a few miles from the gas station where she fueled. The police were notified. Here's what they found during their investigation. The driver's side window of Cara's Volkswagen was halfway down. Her purse was on the seat in plain view, and the keys were in the ignition. The receipt from the Chevron gas station was also in the vehicle, which is how the police knew that Cara had stopped there. After searching the area around the vehicle, the police found Cara's body in a ravine 70 feet below the old Highway 395 bridge, which ran parallel to the interstate. Cara had been strangled to death. The police visited the Chevron gas station and located witnesses who had seen Cara there on December 27. She was alone, and her visit was uneventful. The authorities believed that Cara had been killed on December 27 at about 9:30 p.m., not long after leaving the gas station. The circumstances surrounding Cara's murder were quite unusual. Her vehicle was in an isolated area, and it appeared as though she stopped voluntarily. Her boyfriend had an airtight alibi, so the police knew that he was not involved. Investigators started to wonder if a police officer may have been responsible. This theory did a good job of explaining why Cara would have stopped on that off-ramp. The police asked a local TV station to feature the case on a segment of Crime Stoppers. For this piece, a reporter rode along with a California Highway Patrol officer who offered advice about how women could stay safe while driving. The officer was Craig Peyer. During the interview with the reporter, it was clear that Craig had scratches on his face. As it turned out, interviewing Craig to get safety tips for women was like interviewing Jeffrey Dahmer for tips on healthy eating. After the segment aired, several women called the police and complained that Craig Peyer had pulled them over on the Mercy Road off-ramp. Craig talked to the women for between a half hour and an hour and 40 minutes. He was described as creepy and disturbing. On January 15, 1987, Craig was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Even though he was arrested quickly, it took the police until May of that year to fire him from his job. Here's what the state believed happened to Cara Knott. This was their theory of the crime. When Cara was at the gas station, Craig Peyer noticed her. He was on patrol at this time in a marked police vehicle. He followed Cara onto Interstate 15 and activated his emergency lights. Using his loudspeaker, he ordered her to drive down the Mercy Road off-ramp. This off-ramp was not finished. It had no lights and no traffic. Craig and Cara were alone in the dark. Following his typical pattern, Craig became extremely inappropriate. Cara slapped him or otherwise struck him in response. In a fit of anger, Craig struck Cara with his flashlight and knocked her unconscious. He realized that he was in a lot of trouble. Cara was certainly going to report his behavior, and he was going to end up in prison. He decided that murder would be a better option. Craig used a rope to strangle Cara before placing her body on the hood of his vehicle. He drove down to the old Highway 395 bridge and threw her body over the edge. Craig then continued working. He pulled over other vehicles to make it seem as though he had experienced a murder-free shift. Craig went to trial for the murder, but the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict. The jurors were split 7-5 in favor of conviction. A mistrial was declared in February 1988. Craig went to trial again, this time with a different prosecutor and some new evidence. In June 1988, he was convicted of first-degree murder. In August, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison with the possibility of parole. He could have been released after 17 years, but that did not happen. Craig was denied parole in 2004 and in 2008. After being denied again in 2012, the parole board set his next hearing as far into the future as permissible under the law. Craig's next parole hearing is scheduled for 2027. Considering these circumstances, Craig may want to wait to order the cake and the balloons for the celebration after his next parole hearing. Craig's wife, Karen, who married him just 18 months before the murder, seemed enthusiastic about staying with him at his sentencing in 1988. She proclaimed, quote, "I love you, Craig, and I am glad to be your wife," unquote. She also promised, quote, "I will always be committed to you," unquote. Karen divorced Craig sometime around 2007. On November 30, 2000, Cara Knott's father, John Samuel Knott, died from a heart attack at the age of 63 as he was tending to a memorial garden built in Cara's honor. He died not far from where his daughter had been murdered. Now moving to my analysis. Craig Peyer maintains his innocence, and some of the jury members from the first trial had their doubts about his guilt. The state, of course, was pleased with Craig's conviction. This brings me to the question, was Craig guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Craig was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Overwhelmingly, Craig pulled over young women who were driving alone. During the 6 months preceding Cara's murder, Craig stopped 24 women on Interstate 15 and required them to drive down the Mercy Road off-ramp. Some of these women were forced to drive in reverse on the shoulder of the interstate to get back to the exit because they had passed it when they were pulled over. Craig engaged the women in long, creepy, and invasive conversations, often after getting into the passenger seat of the vehicle. He asked a number of personal questions, including those of a sexual nature. On a few occasions, Craig touched the women's hair and shoulders. Sometimes he would keep the women on the off-ramp for over an hour. Craig was not as talkative when he pulled over male drivers. The average traffic stop involving a male motorist lasted less than 10 minutes. One woman who Craig pulled over had her husband in the vehicle with her. He was in the passenger seat with the seat reclined. When Craig noticed the husband was in the vehicle, he seemed aggravated and left the area quickly. On the night of the murder, Craig was on duty with the California Highway Patrol in a marked police vehicle. Cara stopped at a gas station before entering the interstate. The gas station attendant remembered seeing a California Highway Patrol vehicle make a U-turn on the road near the gas station just after Cara departed, as if the officer was following Cara. A witness saw a California Highway Patrol vehicle pull over a Volkswagen Beetle near the scene of the murder at around the time the murder occurred. Skid marks left near the murder scene were the exact same distance apart as the tires on Craig's police cruiser. Not long after the murder, people at a gas station saw Craig driving at a high speed. They said he looked disheveled. Craig had scratches on his face after the murder. He said they were caused by falling into a fence at the police barracks on December 27. An off-duty police officer saw the scratches on Craig's face an hour before Craig claimed to have made contact with the fence. As a patrol officer, Craig kept a logbook of all his traffic stops. He had an entry on December 27 at 9:30 p.m., which placed him miles away from the scene of the murder, writing a ticket to another motorist. It was clear by looking at the entry that Craig had erased the original entry. In addition, other times in the logbook were not accurate, according to some of the motorists who were pulled over by Craig that night. A gold fiber was found on Cara's shirt, which matched a shoulder patch that Craig was wearing. Purple fibers taken from Craig's boots and gun matched fibers from Cara's sweatpants. A drop of blood was recovered from one of Cara's boots. In 1986, DNA testing was not available, but the blood type could be determined. It was type AB, the rarest blood type. Craig's blood type was AB. After the murder, Craig made unusual statements to his fellow police officers, like he talked about how the perpetrator probably just made a mistake. Police officers are typically not known for being sympathetic to killers. Craig also asked a lot of questions about how the investigation was proceeding. The police were able to verify the alibi of Cara's boyfriend, Wayne. With her boyfriend eliminated as a potential suspect, there were not many people left who Cara would have stopped for in that unusual location. Craig was one of just a few people who had the opportunity and the means to commit the murder. In 2004, the district attorney's office invited Craig to contribute a DNA sample to a program in San Diego County designed to exonerate people who were wrongly convicted. They were willing to test the DNA from the drop of blood found on Cara's boot using modern technology. Craig had professed his innocence for many years. This was his big chance to finally clear his name. However, he declined to contribute a DNA sample. This must be part of his master plan. He wants people to think he's guilty as he searches for the real killer. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there were no witnesses to the murder, no video. Cara could have been murdered in another place, and the killer could have driven her car to the off-ramp. In theory, another police officer could have killed Cara. Maybe that officer noticed Craig's tendency to pull women over on the Mercy Road off-ramp. The killer thought he could commit the murder and frame Craig. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Craig Peyer is guilty? Yes, I believe he is guilty of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. If he was really innocent, he would have been thrilled to have the blood evidence retested using modern DNA testing technology. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Craig was arrogant, sensation-seeking, grandiose, aggressive, impulsive, and had a sense of entitlement. One of Craig's ex-wives said that after he joined the California Highway Patrol, he transformed into Mr. Macho. The badge gave him an opportunity to flirt. Craig routinely pulled over attractive young women. He enjoyed the feeling of having power over women, and he may have been trying to initiate a romantic encounter. He did not have any empathy and simply used his authority to victimize innocent motorists. Craig knew that being a police officer would shield him from consequences. In the month before Cara's murder, 2 complaints were received about Craig pulling women over on the Mercy Road off-ramp. Not only did the police fail to discipline Craig, they defended his actions as standard operating procedure and praised him for using tactics that kept everyone safe. From a police officer's perspective, the 1980s represented a golden age. There were no body cameras, there was no accountability, and being described as very aggressive represented a compliment. It was just a matter of time before Craig took things too far. Now moving to my final thoughts. Even though Craig was prosecuted, his behavior sends a chilling warning about how powerful police are. Cara died because she stood up against a bully who was misusing his authority. This case stands as a reminder about the importance of body cameras and other video recording activity of police officers. Everyone needs to be held accountable for misbehavior, especially those who have been granted tremendous power. Those are my thoughts on the case of Cara Knott and Craig Peyer. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.